I'm out here hanging out in the woods. The little weeds that I got growing in all over the place right now, I would say about probably all of them, just about all of them are about maybe about 80-90% through producing that seed. So the whole idea with the herbicide right now is that trichoplur, it does have residual soil effects, so it can be absorbed by the plant via the roots, and it can also be absorbed by the plant via the leaves. It can actually be absorbed by both. And so my big idea right now is that when the weeds have dropped their seed, and I figured by about next month, if it rains real good one time, if it rains really good one time, the weeds will start to germinate, and that's when I want to hit everything with the herbicide. Herbiciding a bunch of these weeds right now, it's not going to do anything because the weeds have already fully grown, right? I mean, even if I kill the plant, they're just going to drop their seed and then die. And then next month, when it rains, the weeds will just grow back in. And so my whole thing is that I'm just going to wait for the plant to die naturally. I would anticipate that about 80 to 90% of these weeds are dead by about next month. And when it rains real hard next month, at some point it'll rain. And when it rains, that's when I'll go through here with the herbicide, and I will herbicide everything so that the regrowth does not happen. The seeds don't germinate out of the ground. I got a couple of lawn sprinklers yesterday. I was just thinking about it, and I was like, you know what? I want to get myself a couple of lawn sprinklers, and so I bought these lawn sprinklers for $15 a piece. I bought two of them, and the two of them, they'll cover about they go in a 360 degree thing. I got them set up to go 360 degrees, and two of them will cover probably about a tenth of an acre. I mean, they put out a good circle, and so I moved them around 3 times yesterday. I've put them on one spot, and I put them on another spot, and then I put them on another spot, and I ran them each for 1 hour a piece. And I was like, this is a good little thing. One day when I buy myself some land here next month or so, and also this land, this area of Texas has a large aquifer under it. And so I was like, you know what? These irrigation sprinklers, I like these irrigation sprinklers. I mean, they're a real good little thing. I mean, I don't have to run them all the time, and I'm probably not going to put in a permanent irrigation, but having them, it's neat. If I could just run them, once a week, whenever, like if I ever end up in a situation where it just doesn't rain at all for like 3 weeks straight, it just does not rain, like what I'm in right now. The situation that I'm in right now, it practically hasn't rained at all for about 3 weeks. I mean, maybe I have maybe gotten about 1 inch of rain in the last month. And in terms of a somewhat decent optimal grass growth, I need something like 1 inch of rain a week. So I need about 3 or 4 inches of rain a month, and in the last month I've got about 1 inch. And so at a point like right now, it'd be a good idea to just run the irrigation for a little bit. Run them once a week, and just wet the plant real good, and and that'll let the grass grow. And I figured that a half an acre of grass. So I got a couple of sprinklers, the wastewater. I got a couple of wastewater sprinklers, and they cover about another tenth of an acre. And so I figured I'd get about a half an acre of grass, and a half an acre of grass, I could actually precondition 20 little diddly doodad calves on half an acre, no problem. Okay, half an acre of grass growing optimally. If I just control the moisture, if I get enough moisture out there, and I fertilize the grass pretty good, I can easily precondition 20 little diddly doodad calves on half an acre of grass. And so that will actually make me money. And I thought about it, and I was like, I paid $30 for these 2 sprinklers, and 20 cattle, 15 cattle, putting on 100, putting on 80, 90 pounds a month would make me a 100 fold return on my investment within 1 month. 100 and or 15 cattle putting on about 90 pounds, 80 pounds a month. That's about $3 grand. Each animal puts on about $200 worth of gain on a monthly basis, and so 15 animals, that'd be $3,000, right? That'd be $3 grand. And I could make almost a 100 times return on my investment on my $15. And so yeah, I was like, that's a good little deal. And so and it's kind of neat. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, one day I'm looking into buying myself land, right? I'm looking into buy myself land, and I will probably be flush with money. That's one of the things that I got going on for me right now, is that I'll probably be flush with money, even right now. And actually, but yeah, I want to put irrigation on my land. Having some irrigation, even if it's not a permanent irrigation, even if it's not like a permanent fixture, it'd still be pretty neat to have. And so and one of the things that I got I was thinking about is if I make the numbers smaller, it'll probably it would be easier. At least it's easier for me. I don't know if it's this way for everybody. If you're real good with numbers, I'm sure that you could crunch the numbers in your head. It doesn't matter how big or small they are. But it's a lot easier for me to think about it in terms of small numbers. And I said next year my big goal is 1,000. And if I effectively run about if I get myself to a point where I'm running about 400 cattle at a time, if I get myself to a point where I'm running about 420 cattle at a time, that would put me in a real good spot to run about 1,000 cattle for the year. And so because it only takes me 7 months to run a set of cattle, right? I'm not going to be holding on to the same cattle for the entire year. If I run about 420 cattle at a time, that'd put me in a good spot to run about 1,000 cattle for the year. And so instead of 420, let's think about it like 42. And then think about the numbers in terms of 42 instead of 420. So if we think about it in terms of 42, and I'm selling them on a 7-month basis, so that means I'm selling 6 animals every month, right? Those 6 animals that I'm selling every month will make me about maybe about 16 grand, okay? It'll make me about 16 grand. I was actually taking a head count of my animals this morning, and I did pretty much sell all of my heifers. I counted 2 heifers. Well, I mean, I counted 3 heifers, but I may have a couple more in there. But out of my 35 animals, the steer to heifer ratio is like a 6 or 7 to 1. It's like 5 or 6 to 1. For every 5 or 6 steers that I have 1 heifer. And so I pretty much have number 1 to 1.5 type medium large frame commodity steers, okay? A mass majority of my animals are steers right now, and they're 1 to 1.5 type properly conditioned, etc., etc. And so if I sell 6 of them, it'll be I'll make about 16 grand, okay? And I'll make about 16 grand. And so that would leave me with 36 animals, okay? So if I had 42 and I was selling them on a monthly basis, and 42, then I would be very realistically, I mean, we're gonna be talking about, but it doesn't matter what the numbers are, okay? But that number 36, bad juju, right? So let's talk about 49. So if I had 49 animals and I was selling them on a 7-month basis, I'd be selling 7 every month, okay? So if I had 49 animals and I was selling 7 a month, I would be running them for 7 months a piece, and I'd be selling 7 at a time. And if I sold 7, I'd effectively make about 20 grand, 19 grand, about $19,000, okay? But if I sold 7, I'd still have 42 animals, right? And for every 5 animals that I have, they effectively produce me 1 penny a month. And so let's just think about it as 40, because let's just say 2 animals, whatever. I may have had 2 animals die. Let's say I used 2 animals worth of money would be about $2,700. Let's say I used $2,700 to pay for gas, and to pay for medication, and to pay for feed, and to pay for fertilizer, whatever. I had an animal die, something happened, okay? And so I ended up with 40. I ended up with 40 animals, okay, worth of money. That 40 animals worth of money would still produce me 8 pennies, right? Every 5 animals produce me about 1 penny a month. So if I have 40 animals, that'd be 8 pennies. So I sold 7. I made enough money to buy, I made about $19,000. There is a profit margin when I sell my animals. Granted that I sell my biggest animal, I'm not selling like my smallest animal out of my preconditioning pen, right? So I made whatever, $19,000. I still have my 40 animals, and my 40 animals put on about 8 animals worth of gain, okay? And so during that month, even if I did not reinvest my money, if I held on to the $19,000, if I did not invest any of that money, that, you know, I made that money by selling 7, right? If I did not sell, or if I did not invest any of that money, and I held on to all of that money, and I invested with straight debt, and I just leveraged against the unrealized gain of my herd, I could still buy another 8 animals, okay? I would still technically be growing my business, all right? I would still technically be growing my business. So the whole thing is and that's the fail safe. If I ever end up in a situation where the amount, which I probably will, okay, I'm taking a look at it. I'm not going on some magical journey, okay. I'm not like schizophrenic. I'm not like I'm not like delusional, okay. I don't have like and I've talked about this, like I'm not like I'm a very mentally even person, okay. I'm not like a delusional, I don't have schizophrenia. I'm not upset about anything. I'm not happy about anything. I just feel okay. Okay. That's how I feel. I don't feel, I'm not like skipping for joy. I'm not like miserable. I'm not schizophrenic. I'm just kind of just a very even person. Okay. I wake up, I go to work, and I'm okay with that. Okay. I do very well for myself. I'm in the cattle business. It's a very stable business, and chances are, when I take a look at it over the period of my life, over the course of my life, the price of beef cattle are probably going to move up in an upwards direction, even if they do not go upwards all the time. There may be times, there may even be 3, 4, 5 years in a row where the price goes down, and but I would reasonably anticipate that. Let's say I'm 34 right now. When I wake up at 84 years old, the price of beef will probably be higher in 50 years than it is today. That's what I reasonably anticipate, okay? And so, if I ever end up in a situation, which I probably will, this is the idea for the fail safe, okay? This is the fail safe. If I, when I end up in a situation, which will be very soon, all right, it will be very soon. Even right now, and think about it like this. Let's think about it with 49 animals. If I have 49 animals and I'm selling 7 animals on a monthly basis and making 19 grand, let's say I sold 14, or let's say I sold 7 and I made enough money to buy 14, and I have enough unrealized gains on my balance sheet to buy another 8. I would have to buy 22 animals. So I'd be selling 7 and buying 22, right? And so, and this is also what I've been saying about, and that would just keep my balance sheet at an 80% leverage. But the big problem right now is that at 800 pounds, as of today, at 800 pounds, my balance sheet would actually be under 80% leverage. If I just continue forward with what I am doing today and reinvesting my earnings, and the whole thing about the tax situation, I'm at the end of the tax year. I don't really want to, I really need to redo my loans. And, and my whole tax situation is, I'm effectively looking to just create the foundational basis for growing my business exponentially here in about 3 months, starting about next year. I'm really increasing my equity stake. I'm really increasing my equity proportion on my balance sheet. That's the big goal for the next 3 months, right? To increase the amount of equity, proportional equity that I have on my balance sheet, to create a stable foundation for me to leverage next year. And I'm also, when I leverage myself, I'm also looking to buy myself more land. Okay, when I realistically take a look at what I'm doing, I would be we're reasonably talking about my equity proportion, the proportion of my equity being being about 70% of my balance sheet. The amount of equity that I have in terms of the amount of debt that I have is going to be about 70% to 30%. Okay. Granted that I just continue to run my business for the next 3 months, which I probably will. Okay. I probably will. Okay. And my whole thing about doing worse than expected or doing better than expected, there is a very reasonable possibility that I end up doing better than I anticipate, simply because when I come up with these plans, I always lowball myself. Okay. It makes more sense for me to lowball myself. There's a very real possibility that I end up doing 10 or 20% better. Okay, if I run through my plan 2 times on a yearly basis and I do 20% better, if I do 15% better, then I actually end up doing like a 32% better for the year, right? Compound the 15% on top of itself, and so I realistically end up doing like 32% better. And there's a very, in all honesty, there is a reasonable possibility that I end up doing better for myself than I reasonably than what I am discussing, simply because I lowball myself. Okay. I do lowball myself when I come up with these plans. And and I'm in the cattle business, right? The cattle business is a commodity business. It's a very stable asset. It's a good asset. It's not some gizmo. It's not some gadget. It's not some whatever, right? It's not some difficult to understand thing. I run beef cattle, okay? I run commodity beef cattle, and so let's think about it in terms of 49 animals, okay? So I sell 7 animals. I make enough money to buy 14. And I still have enough, and I actually produced enough of leverage on my balance sheet, or I produced enough, I produced enough unrealized gains on my balance sheet to buy another 8 animals. So what we're effectively talking about is me selling 7 and buying 22. But in all honesty, with what I got going on right now, here in about 3 months, I'm gonna end up in a situation where I'm gonna be selling 5 and buying 25. I really need to think about selling 5 and buying 25. But normally it'd be something like sell 7 and buy 22. Okay, and this is also the big benefit of me reinvesting my earnings, because when I have the check in my hand, there is a profit. Right, there was a profit that I made when I sold my animals. I brought home a bunch of 225-pound animals, and I sold them at 800 pounds. And when I sold them at 800 pounds, they were effectively a commercially viable beef animal. They were raised to a commercial standard, and they are a beef animal, right? Number 1 to 1.5 type medium large frame. I made my money in between, right? I made my money by putting that weight on the animal and raising that animal to be a commercially viable animal. So there's a profit, right? And so when I sell the 7, I'll make enough money to buy 14, right? And so, and let's say I sold 7 and made enough money to buy 22. The whole fail-safe is that if it comes down to it, if I'm having a difficult time selling 7 and buying 22, and you have to understand that doing this plan will send my balance sheet vertical. It will take me on an exponential curve. It will not be like I'm making 10% a year. It will be like I am increasing the size of my business by like 250, 500% a year. Okay, it will send my balance sheet vertical. Whenever the whole fail-safe, right? And the whole fail-safe is that if I ever run into a situation where I cannot invest all of my money and all of the money that is an unrealized gain on my balance sheet, I can pull the cash out of the business and invest with straight debt. I can do that, okay? That is a fail-safe. That is one fail-safe. But even at 49 animals, let's think about it. Even at 49 animals, I'd be selling 7 a month. I'd still have 42 left. Let's say it's 40. Those 40 would still be producing me 8 animals worth of unrealized gains. And the 7 that I sold would have made me enough money to buy 14, okay? So even at 49, I'd be selling 7 and buying 22 just to keep my business at an 80% leverage. But in all honesty, here within about 3 months, the amount of equity that I have in proportion to my debt will be about 70 to 30%. All right, it'll be 70% equity and 30% debt. And so for me to even this thing out, every time I sell 5, I need to buy 25. And even then, I'm gonna have to ramp it up as I go, because if I sell 5 and buy 25. Those 25 animals that I bought will produce me a return, right? And so if it takes me 3 months down the line, those 25 animals would have produced me like another 15 pennies. Okay, so this is also what I mean by this is going to be an exponentially this is going to get pretty gnarly pretty quick. This is going to get pretty pretty gnarly pretty fast, okay? And but it's going to send my business exponential. It is going to send me on an exponential curve. It won't be linear, okay? And I thought about it, and my whole thing is I'm going to go for it simply because even at 49 animals, right? If I'm running 49 animals at a time, and I'm netting myself a 22 animals worth of money on a monthly basis, and I'm sitting on about 100 and whatever, the 49 animals would be worth about will be worth about 120 grand, right? And so, you know, it's, and at 800 pounds, they'd be worth about 140 grand. And so, realistically, even then, it's enough money for me to effectively do anything. All right, it's whatever, you know, that whatever it is. But the whole thing about it, like if I pull money out of a business, okay, the whole thing about scraping money out of a business is that it becomes like it turns into a situation where you're fiddle diddling with money. All right, and this is also one of the things that I don't like about scraping money off a business, and this is also why I don't want to scrape money off my business. My whole idea is if I dump the money back into my business, I get tax benefits, and if it comes down to it, I can legitimately just leverage against the assets, or I can pull the cash out of the business and then just reinvest with straight debt. And I'm not going to do that at the expense of my business, right? That's the big idea. I wouldn't do that at the expense of my business, you know, but here's the thing. All right, me running 150, 200 cattle a year, it's not difficult for me, okay? It's not difficult for me. I don't have any major difficulties doing it. It's not difficult for me, okay? It's not hard for me to run 150. You know, I'll probably end up running about 175 cattle this year. I still need to buy maybe another I still need to buy about 45 more animals before the end of the year. And so I started the year with like a 35, then I went to 50, and then now I'm at 35 again, and then and I don't know exactly how many animals I ran, but you know, it'll be about 150 or something like that, okay? Oh yeah, I did pull some money out of the business to to rent that bulldozer and to, you know, spray the herbicide and fix fence and stuff like that, and so you know that's why also the number of animals that I ran for this year is a little bit lower than I anticipated. But on the other hand, the flip side to me having utilized the equity, and I'm not going to utilize equity again to have access to money. I'm just going to cash flow my expenses. It's not a good idea to utilize equity to cover expenses. Now, this is something that I've been thinking about, and it's not a good idea to do that. And I call it cannibalizing the investment, because that's effectively what I'm doing. Like if I did that over a long period of time, if I was selling portions of the investment to cover expenses, then ultimately I would not have an investment. I would have sold all of it, right? And that's why I call it cannibalizing the investment. And so, and I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm just going to cash flow all my expenses. But in reality, it is what it just is what it is. Okay. At least I got something out of it. Okay. Now at least I now have about 375 acres. Okay. You know, I grew the amount of acreage that I had substantially, by 30, more than 30-fold. And so, you know, at least I got something out of cannibalizing the investment, but I'm not going to do it again. Okay. I will be cash flowing my expenses from here on out. I don't want to cannibalize the investment. And in all reality, very soon, within 3, 4, 5 months, the amount of cash flow that I produce will effectively be enough money for me to buy anything on the entire planet. Okay. You know, it won't matter. Okay. I'll be able to buy effectively anything. It'll be a lot of money. And so, but yeah, the whole idea of investing my money, investing the profits back into the business gives me a stable foundation to leverage against. That's the big idea, okay? And I guess the $1 million question, it's like, like if you were to look at my business today, I've always said that the whole thing about having an equitable asset, what are some examples of some good equitable assets? A good stock in a company, right? Like a company that's doing well, right? The S&P 500 would be a good stock, right? That's an equitable. That's something I would consider an equitable asset. What is something that I would not consider an equitable asset? A business that you started with the intentions of pulling the money out of the business and then bankrupting it. All right, if that's not a good asset. That's one of the if you do that, that's not good. Like if you start a business to intentionally bankrupt the business and pull money out of the business, that is not good. Okay, that's not a good asset. What's also not a good asset? YOLOing weekly option contracts. That's not a good asset. I don't think Bitcoin's a good asset. Those are examples of not good assets, right? And what are some examples of some good assets? The S&P 500, right? The commodity market, that's a good asset. The commodity market is a very good asset, Real estate, that's another big one. Businesses that produce positive cash flow, businesses that you understand and produce positive cash flow. That's a good asset. Rental properties, right? Commercial real estate. But not all assets are good assets. Even real estate, some real estate is not good. Okay, some businesses are not. A majority of businesses are not good. Okay, a majority of real estate is not good. Like single family homes are not good. Okay, yeah. And the whole thing about having an equitable asset is that the good thing about having an equitable asset is that you have something that is worth money that is not money, right? And the whole thing about that is that if you have this asset, you can use it for collateral for leverage. You can use it as collateral for leverage, okay? That's the big benefit, okay? And so, that's what, I talked about the whole idea of having $100 million put away, right? If you have $100 million put away and it's making you 10% a year, that's effectively at that point, it's unlimited money. And, and from my reasonable belief system, after that point, the only thing that, the only reason to make more money would be if like you're legitimately going to do something that would affect humanity on a large scale, okay? Like if you are going to do something that is going to affect humanity on a large scale, like then like launch rocket ships at Mars, right? That's the big example. Or build robots, right? Like if you're going to do something like that, then sure, you could, you would probably need more than $100 million a year. You would probably need more than $100 million, not a year, more than $100 million put away. Okay, you probably would. And so that's how I see it. But after about $100 million of net equity, making a 10% return a year, it's effectively unlimited money. All right, even if you used $5 million, and granted that the asset itself was you were making the money with the equity, okay, and it was producing you a return. And so, yeah. So that's the big thing, right? Yeah. So, the whole idea of having a good asset, the reason that you want good assets is because you can hold them for collateral, okay? You may not have cash, but you have something that is as good as cash. And if that asset produces you a return and you hold that asset for collateral, it will give you access to capital, and you can use your return from your asset that you held for collateral to pay for the debt service. Right? If you have $100 million on an equity stake and it's producing you 10% a year, that's $10 million a year. If you go to the bank and you hold your asset for collateral to buy another $40 million asset, and that $40 million asset, they say, well, we'll hold your $100 million equity stake. We'll hold a portion of that to give you a loan for the $40 million. And, the $40 million loan will be given to you at 7% interest. Right, then 7% interest, 7% of 40 million is significantly less than 10% of 100 million. So you can just take the interest payment out of the $10 million that you make, and you would still have money left over. And you could invest that money still, and you could still continue to grow your investment portfolio, right? You could still continue to grow your investment portfolio, and you would have bought yourself something for $40 million, right? So it doesn't cost, that's effectively how it pans out, okay? And so that's the big idea. The whole reason for holding equitable assets is because, number one, equitable assets usually come with tax benefits, okay? Usually equitable assets come with tax breaks. And so you get tax breaks for purchasing these assets. And then you can hold them for collateral. And if they produce you a return, you can hold your asset for collateral, take a loan against it, and then cover the debt service with the money that you make on your asset to cover your interest payment or whatever it is that you and it's effectively at $100 million, it's effectively unlimited money, okay? It is effectively unlimited money. Granted that you're not like looking to do something like build robots. If you're looking to build robots, if you're looking to launch rockets at Mars, then you're going to need more than 100 million. But in terms of like legitimately just, having, a significant sum of money and never running out of money for the rest of your life, it's about 100 million. That's how I see it. All right, 100 million, you'll effectively never run out of money again. Granted that you're not an idiot. If you're an idiot, there is no amount of money that will save you. Okay, you'll lose everything. It doesn't matter how much you have. All right, and And in terms of my situation, I am going for it. I'm not delusional. I'm not like mentally unstable. All right, I'm not schizophrenic. I don't feel, I don't feel extremely happy. I don't feel sad. I don't feel agitated. I don't feel anything. I feel okay. I feel okay. I honestly, that's how I feel. I feel okay. I got a lot to work on, and I'm doing real well for myself. I do very well for myself, and the amount of money that I'm making is going to go exponential. That's the thing. All right, the amount of money, I've already decided to reinvest everything that I make. And if I reinvest everything that I make, I'll start doing that here in 3 months. And when I start doing that in 3 months, the amount of equity that I have in terms of proportion to my debt, my equity position will be about 70% towards 30% debt. And so, I'm effectively starting by in about 3 months. I'll be in a situation where I'll be selling 5 animals and I'll be buying 25. I may even be buying 30, selling 5 and buying 30. And when I redo my loans, I'll also look into buying myself more real estate. And even if I use all of pool, I don't really want to be in a situation where I'm using all of pool number 3. But even if I buy myself 100 acres for $1 million, all right, then I'll be good to go. That'll give me if I have about 200 more acres and I build out a good preconditioning facility, then I can realistically, my whole big idea right now is to when I buy land, I'm going to build out a very good preconditioning facility, and I'm going to precondition a lot of cattle, okay? And then once they are preconditioned, once they are about 500 pounds, once they are about 400 pounds, at that point, I will let them out on my lease properties. So I'm going to take them from about 200 pounds up to 400 pounds, maybe 500 pounds. And then when they're at about 400 or 500 pounds, I will then let them out on the lease properties. I don't really want to put a lot of, you don't want to put a lot of small calves on a big piece of land like this, because the dogs will kill them. Okay, if you have a little 250-pound calf, if you have a little 350-pound calf, the dogs will kill them. If you're not out here taking care of the cattle all the time, the coyotes and the dogs will kill them. Okay, they're not going to be able to fend for themselves very well. But once they're about 450 pounds, once they're about 400, 500 pounds, they'll have figured it out, and the dogs won't be able to kill them because they're too large. And so, they'll fend for themselves a lot better. And so, once they're about 400 or 500 pounds, I'm gonna cut them out on the lease property, and I'm gonna precondition them to about on my own property, and I'm gonna build out a good preconditioning space on my own property, and I'll be buying my own property when I redo my loans at the beginning of next year. Up until then, I will be creating a large equity basis for me to have effectively a good basis of equity for me to leverage against to grow my business next year here in about 3 months. That's what I'll be working on over the next 3 months. And the whole idea of the $1 million question is, what do you think my business is worth? Okay, what do you think my business is worth? I've always said that businesses are worth money, and the most reasonable way to take a look at how much a business is worth is to take a look at how much money it makes and then multiply it. Okay, and if the business is growing, then you multiply it with a bigger number. And I've spoken about this in the past. The whole idea of being in the 0.000000001 percentile is that you need to understand, and it just is what it is. Money's not an opinion, okay? Let's say that I just managed to do what I say I'm going to do, okay? And let's just say I managed to do it, okay? And let's just say even right now, over the last 9 months, let's say over just this year, putting a multiple on my earnings, I mean that would already put my business in the multi-millions, somewhere between $5 and $7 million. Okay, it would already put my business at somewhere between $5 and $7 million. And in all honesty, I have a very, very, very reasonable idea for growing my business. I'm actually in the process of doing it right now, and I realistically anticipate that I'll get to about $2.5 million next year. And at $2.5 million, I mean, we're effectively talking about me making almost $50 million in a year. Okay, we're talking about me making almost $50 million in terms of because you have to understand that my business is that the amount of money that I make is tied to my business. All right, and my business is a good business. I'm in the commodity cattle business. It's a very stable business. All right, in terms of a realistic, situation, I don't know anybody, other than people like on the internet, like Warren Buffett and people like that legitimately make money like me. I don't know anybody, and in real life, I don't know anybody, not a single person. I don't know anybody that makes money like me. I don't know anybody else that's like, what, I'm just gonna grow my business to $2.5 million next year. Maybe I do about $400,000 this year, but next year I'm gonna do about $2.5 million. I don't know anybody else, looking to legitimately grow their business by $2.2 million in a year, net take home. Other than me, I don't know anybody else. And if you think about 2.2 million on like a 20 times multiple, we're talking about $40-50 million business. And I'm effectively going to make myself about $40 or $50 million. And I don't know anybody, that makes money like me. And other than people on the internet, okay? That's it.